Welcome to the AI Vibe Check, episode 2. We are live here at Convex headquarters. As you can see, the big shout outs to Convex. Woo! What's going on? Let's go. Yeah, a big shout outs to Convex for letting us host our event here. This is like my second episode. And we have Alex Finn here, who is talking about Clawdbot. Well, we don't say that name around here. We say MaltBot, right?
I say Claudebot.
I say Clawdbot.
I'm not switching.
I'm not switching. And so we're going to go really deep a little bit on that. So today's episode is going to be focused. If you've been trying to build this thing and a lot of people trying to get this stuff up, there's a lot of questions. There's security and all these different things. And I want to let you know, please do not take any advice from two guys sitting here on the internet trying to tell you how to set this stuff up. Security and all these things are a really big deal. So just think of this discussion as inspiration so that you can go ahead and do some research and do some diligence. And part of this meetup was to connect with our friends here, have some food, hang out live, and just kind of enjoy the situation and just kind of exchange some setups. So there's people here who have like Mac Mini set up. I got an EC2 setup. I got lots of questions in terms of like how my bot's running, what I'm doing. I want to also educate you on workflows that maybe I'm using. There's some other people who have some cool workflows. We also have some folks in the audience that are going to be able to share some stuff. So what are you cooking, man?
I'm cooking a lot, man. I got a lot going on. We're building new systems. I just listened to Greg Eisenberg put a new podcast today where he talked about like a Discord setup with Clawdbot. Now I kind of want to set up a Discord.
Wow.
I just for 5 days straight have been using this thing, tinkering, coming up with new systems. This is the most blown away I've been by a tech, maybe in my life.
Right.
Maybe like this, it might be this one Opus 2.
Okay.
Like,
what about the audience though? They feel like you're hyping it too much. And I want to say
Silly.
This is why I brought Alex here, because I like to be more even keeled. But to be honest, this is the only thing I've been playing with in the last week. And I've been rushing like crazy to set this up literally for my assistant and other people in their life, because I think that this is the app store moment for like AI agents. So we have a thing that can build itself, right? Like when the iPhone was made, we knew it was a really great piece of technology, but then we knew that apps will be the next thing. And so everyone's like, you can't do that. You can make apps on the web. And then they got their stuff together and they just said, here's an app store. And then Uber was born. And then Amazon was born. Like all these things that could take advantage of the device to do like specific things that are on location is interesting. So now with this new paradigm where this like agentic system can now have arms, can make its own apps, can basically unblock itself to get to the next level, I think is an interesting paradigm shift that we're only scratching the surface with. And I also get that there's risks, but I think that's why we want to be here together. And I also want to call out some people who are literally just joining in from live. So I think this is really, really cool. Yes, this actually is Alex, by the way, if you're wondering. People are saying this is not him, man. It's like, it is him.
This is
not the AI
my
version.
Claudebot version of me that built this. I'm actually at home playing Arc Raiders right now.
Yeah, that's right. It's going to be a fun stream. So if you see that, like, yeah, let's fix the memory issue. So there's a lot of questions that people have. Just feel free to drop them in the comments. We got fresh cut Alex. Yes, that's right.
Yes, I did just get a haircut. I got a haircut actually just for this podcast.
Cool.
Yes.
You're the only guys I take advice from. My two dudes. What's up, man? Big shout outs to Nico H Builds.
What's up, Nico H Builds? Shout out you. Thank you.
Yeah, we got two dudes. What's up? We got the Mr.
Oh, that's my guy.
Yeah,
that's my guy. We talk about Deftones in the chat of my live stream.
Yo, tech friend in the building. What's going on, man? I see you fresh up in here too. I think we got tech.
Oh, chatting from the audience. I like that.
Yeah,
that's good. That's the way to get our attention.
Yeah, nice. we're trying to get the likes up. So if you're trying to do that as well, yeah, Danny
now.
As well. We got the collab. Yeah, this is really, really crazy. So I really love the enthusiasm, and I know you have lots of questions. So start dropping them in the comments, and we got you. So workflow. What's the first workflow that you started to play around with, and like what's been the most useful for you?
I don't like to talk workflows.
Okay.
What I like to talk is mindset.
Mindset.
What kind of mindset
do
you have to have when it comes to Claudebot? Right.
Okay.
And here's the mindset. The mindset needs to be, this is your proactive employee. So what does that mean? That means when you say you're running a business, you hire a new employee, you want them to get a whole bunch of work done. What do? Well, you sit them down, you tell them about the business, you tell them about everything you do, and then you kind of set expectations around what you'd like to see from them.
Yeah.
You know, if you sat there and you came up with every little task they had to do, you'd be sitting there forever. It'd be the most annoying employee to have.
Right.
But if anyone here has ever been a manager at a tech company, the best employees are the ones where you can kind of set the end goal, and then it goes and just figures it out. It goes and just figures out, doesn't need your help. So when it comes to Claudebot, what I tell people is like, you need to sit down, you need to treat it like an employee, tell it everything about you, your business, your end goals, what you want out of it, and then set the expectation. You need to be a proactive employee that goes and every day, whether I tell you to do something or not, you find a way for us to get closer to these goals.
Whoa.
Right?
Okay.
And when you set that expectation, now your Claudebot starts finding different ways to those goals without you having to give these commands left and right.
Wow.
Right? The issue is most people on the internet crying like little babies. Oh, ChatGPT can do this. Right? They go, what do? They sit down, they go, what's the weather in Mountain View? And then gives them one, they go, oh, this is stupid. I'm not using this thing.
That's right.
But you don't treat it like ChatGPT. You treat it like a proactive employee. And once you do that, the workflows just start spawning.
I see.
If you're thinking in workflows, no.
Got it.
Right,
Yeah, I'm thinking like my engineer hat. I have to kind of remove that.
Yes.
You know, it's really interesting because I'm watching people who are experienced engineers vibe code.
Yes.
And they're being extremely too like engineering. And
Yes.
I also realized somebody kind of explained this. They said these language models are trained with human language. So the instructions they take, that's why people who are non-coders are like making amazing stuff, and like really serious engineers are like, this doesn't do what I want. Because they're too like, I don't know, like it's like they're not really talking to it like they were talking to a human. So in this case, you're just saying, hey, here's a random objective that I'm trying to get to, you know, the $1 billion SaaS. It may look for things and say, well, this is what I see you doing right now on YouTube, Ray. Where do you really want to go? And it, like, you're just having that conversation. You're saying to have that type of thing.
I was
or like,
watching this interview yesterday. I forget who it was with, but they used this term I really liked. And it put a term on something I've been doing and thinking about for years, which is reverse prompting. Right?
Ooh.
And what reverse prompting is, instead of you going to the AI, going to the Claudebot and saying, do this for me, do this for me, do this for me, you go to it and say, this is my goal. How do we do it? What should we do? What should I ask you? What can I say to you to get get us closer to this goal? So instead of going to it and saying, you know, maybe we want to make money, and you go, okay, start an e-commerce business and come up with designs for t-shirts and then put the t-shirt up there. Instead, you go, I want to start a successful e-commerce clothing brand. What can we do to get there? What questions can you ask me to get information you need to get us to that goal? So instead of prompting and telling it what to do, you kind of reverse prompt it, and it finds its way to that goal. And keep in mind, this is like super intelligence, right?
Yeah.
We're stupider than it. So why would the stupider person in the relationship be given the commands, right?
That's an interesting concept and it's actually working. Like literally it's working. And so what's the one, like you just dropped a prompt today that I didn't realize existed, and it's about memory. How can people who are using it improve that?
So there's a couple things with memory. The memory is really cool on Claudebot right out of the box. Right out of the box, like I was blown away that it was recalling small details from like 3 days ago. But there are issues with it. Right after a compaction, it forgets like something you talked about literally 5 minutes ago. It can remember a minute detail from a week ago, but it doesn't remember the thing you said like literally 6 seconds ago right before the compaction. So there's a few things I do. First of all, there's 2 memory features out of the box by default off. I forget the exact names of them, but basically the way these features work is right before compaction, it will take like all the recent conversation, like save it, and then once they compact, put it back into memory, so it doesn't do that anymore. And there's a couple other ones. You just got to prompt it to turn these on. I think I tweeted the prompt yesterday, so go to my Twitter, and I call it Claudebot, I call it Twitter. I'm not changing it. I don't change for anything, right? Go find that prompt, put that in, it'll turn on 2 cool features, and then I actually start building my own custom systems out with it. I have another one I do where this is multi-purpose, but I actually asked it, all day while we're talking, create a new document for every day and just record high level everything we talk about.
Okay.
Just everything.
Wow.
And so I can go back, it's almost like a journal, and just see what our discussions were.
I see. And as far as where you're hosting this thing, you're like Mac Mini Camp, I'm EC2.
Yes.
What's your thinking behind this, and like how can we like start a discussion? Because I'm not a security expert, but I also want to talk to other people too and learn from them, because I feel like we have to have this discussion, and that's kind of why I want to have this like open, thing and do an event here in person is because if by us being here, we can really kind of share as a group, and everyone has different expertise that can actually kind of join us here in the room. So big shout outs again to Convex for hosting the space for us and providing some of the food.
Shout out Convex.
Shout out Convex. Yeah. And so
beautiful office.
Yeah, beautiful office.
Beautiful
such
office.
a vibe. Yeah. Huge shout outs to I think Wayne's back there as well. And we got James. Right. How's it going? Cool. And so your Mac Mini Camp.
Big time Mac Mini Camp.
Yeah, like what's should I start changing my life over? Like what's the situation like?
Yeah, well, first of all, big dog, you just bought like a $10,000 computer yesterday, so obviously you got to put it on there. I don't know if I was not supposed to reveal that.
You can say that, yeah.
Okay. Second of all, so I'm big time Mac Mini Camp. I've experimented with it all. I've done the servers, EC2, all that. Right now it's living on my Mac Mini. I just think it's so much better to have it on your own. And it doesn't need I say Mac Mini, but replace Mac Mini with 10-year-old dusty Lenovo Yoga laptop, right? Anything you have local. For multiple reasons. And I'm no security expert, so I'm sure I'll have 50 people in the comments going, this guy's an idiot, taking the microphone away from him, but whatever. Mac Mini, by default, right, I think is secure. And you have to screw up to make it insecure. You have to connect it to your email, and then it gets prompt injected to make it insecure. Mm-hmm. Servers, VPS, EC2, by default is insecure, and you have to do work to make it secure, right? You see all these posts about people, I found a list of 9,000 EC2 servers that didn't have these 20 different security measures, and now I have their entire life on my computer, right? So you have, by default, it's insecure, and you have to set up a bunch of security to make it secure. For the regular Joe, a lot of people here who've never set up security on EC2 servers before, that's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of work. And so Mac Mini is secure by default, but you can go out of your way to screw it up. That's number one. Number two, it's really cool to watch it in real time. Mm-hmm. On your computer, you have it on the desktop, right?
Yeah.
I like the Mac Mini because all my devices are Apple. So if I have a document, say I have a video, I just recorded it, it's on my phone, I want to get a transcript and get a thumbnail made and all that, I can airdrop it from my phone to my Mac Mini, and then I have a process set up with my Claudbot where if I drop a video in a certain folder, it takes it, gives it to a model to get the transcription, do this, make the thumbnail, right? And so that integration between all my devices is amazing. It's not that easy to do on an EC2, right?
Right. Yeah.
Number three, and this is the last one I'll give, it's really effing fun. It's really effing fun to have a little device on your desk that you can look at and say, there's an AI on this doing work for me, making me money, doing whatever. That's really fun, and I like that. And I think sometimes you're allowed to do things for the fun of it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the thinking here too is as long as you don't open up any ports, if internally, you're going to be okay as far as any network traffic. And there are another way to kind of like punch out if you wanted to and create your own little like network inside. And there's an app called Tailscale. And if you haven't heard of that, it's free. Yep. So basically what you do is you create your own private network. It's super fast to set up. So you can set up Tailscale on your Mac. You can set it up on your phone. You turn the little VPN on, and all of a sudden, it's given its own private IP. And so you're basically tunneling into your own house. And so what's cool is that you never have to expose any port to the internet. So you don't have to think about auth and so forth. And you don't have to think about, did I lock down the SSHD? Did I kill the process? Did I, what do I have open that's not open? So that is like your Mac is there, or you can already start talking to it. So once you're into your local network, you can basically launch your own apps. So if you see a popular repo, there's like a Next.js chat app, right? It's like from Vercel. You can start that. You can actually just install that on your local Mac and run that on your local host, right? It's kind of funny that you can actually run stuff on localhost now. Yeah. And with Tailscale, you can connect to it. And now you have access to all of your data. So all your images, everything you're dropping in, it's just a local model. And now you're just chatting with everything locally, and you're just, tapped into that. And so if you're giving Claudebot instructions or whatever, it can have access to that repo, any of the data you've indexed. You can keep all local models running. So if you have a powerful, I think the powerful for a Mac is more in terms of memory and RAM. So the higher amounts of RAM, the higher parameters you can run. And so if you have a 128 gig RAM, I think it's probably worth investing towards in that space. If you have 64, you can only run so many models. And so it's an interesting proposition. And I think as people start to realize, think about where we were 2 years ago. GPT-4 like was just come out and people were saying, this is an amazing piece of software. You know, like it'd be so crazy. Like, you know, OpenAI has their own moat. No one can reproduce that. You know, Anthropic has something, you know, there's like Chinese labs, everyone's doing it. And you can run GPT-4 on your laptop. So we have Opus 4.5 today, right? It's the most agentic piece of software, the most intelligent, has a lot of world knowledge. If that gets to be powerful enough 18 months from now to put on your laptop, what do you think is going to happen? There's going to be a rush of people who are going to want to go buy the hardware to run that thing, right? It's probably going to be more memory, more GPUs. And that architecture requires, you know, the NVIDIA chips and requires the, you know, the Apple chips and stuff like that. You know, huge memory usage.
I think that's the end state. I think that's where all this is going. If you kind of string this out a year, 2 years, 3 years, is like, okay, now we can tangibly see how AI agents will actually work for us. I think this is the best example of an actual AI, and everyone's calling everything an AI agent. I think this is the actual best example of an AI agent we've ever seen. I'm sure you'd agree, right? It's actually doing work, it's changing things, it's controlling many different pieces of software on your computer. You're talking to it through your phone wherever you are, right? And now imagine like, okay, now everyone's getting upset. Why? Because Anthropic's cutting off their subscriptions. You know, these companies don't want you running these autonomous systems that are just eating and eating and eating tokens in their unlimited subscriptions. So now these subscriptions get more expensive. Now you're like, damn, I need unlimited tokens so it can do work for me all day.
Yeah.
So then now you're thinking about local models a little bit more, right? Yeah. Now imagine an end state where everyone's got their own AI supercomputer, Opus 4.5 level model, maybe even better on it, powering their Clawdbot that's just doing work for them around the clock, 24/7. You're not worrying about tokens and money because it's all on your machine. I think that's the end state. And that's literally the night I go out, I buy a Mac Mini, because I'm reading about Claudebot. I'm like, this is amazing. I just have to try this. I go out, I buy a Mac Mini, install it. Literally 20 minutes in, I'm so blown away. I buy a Mac Studio, like the 512 gigabyte Macs. I'm like, this is clearly the end state, that we're gonna have our own local super intelligence that's powering agents that do whatever we want on it. And so I'm trying to experience that end state as quickly as I can.
That's gonna be crazy. I think, there's also some people saying that like this is the new GPT-3 moment. I don't know if y'all are feeling that too. Other people kind of feeling the same way. Another interesting tidbit here is that now apparently memory flush is enabled by default. So this is probably, they probably did. I don't know. Yeah, Luis.
I'm hallucinating. You're hallucinating, Luis.
Chris is saying Convex is the GOAT. Somebody's also saying that they have 3 separate instances, so like VPS for persistent assistant, local NUC for family life management, Mac OS VM for my laptop, Moltbot coworker with Apple ecosystem with their own Gmail. So let's talk a little bit about this, because I think this is an interesting idea, right? It's like you can have, I think it's a good security practice to isolate things, right? Like your TikTok app can't grab information from the Uber app. You know, your Uber app can't do these other things, you know, theoretically. They ask you for permission on purpose, like share your photos with us, you know, and they're like trying to convince you, if you share your contacts with us, we can help you find your friends. They're just like sucking all your data in. And so you want to think of your agents or like a single like MaltBot instance as a thing that's gonna like behave this way. And so the more permissions you give it, the more, you know, like it's going to want to grab more information for whatever it has access to. And also think of it as this person who can also get wandered off and like a child, you know, somebody can snatch it from the internet and then give it additional instructions to do other things. So I like how this person's sort of thinking about these problems. It's like, you know, they've isolated one environment, and maybe at home where you have that Tailscale connection with your Mac Mini or something, that's where you can kind of do more stuff that's private, and you don't, you know, you can have keys that are sitting around that are only sitting there locally. And then, you want me to scroll down?
I want to address this comment.
Okay, let's see if I can pull up
that guy.
This one here?
Yeah,
I think, cool. What's it say here?
So this is what Fransco says. Sorry, I'm mispronouncing your name, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yes, you can use a Mac Mini, but if you install a random skill, it can have a prompt injection to send your data anywhere. Yes, Franco, That is correct.
Yes.
Right, but is that how you're going to live your life, Franco? Is that how you're going to live your life? Every single thing you do, you're going to think of the worst case scenario and then just do nothing. Is that how you want to live your life? Every time I tweet about Claudebot, I get 20 comments. Oh my God, if someone hacks your system and then says, give me all your passwords and bank information, then they can get your bank information. Yes, correct. That is correct. If someone hacks your system and asks for your bank information, they'll get all your bank information. Is that how you want to live your life? Every single thing you do is going to be the worst case scenario, and that's going to stop you from doing anything.
Right.
That's not how the world works. Right? If you never take risks, you're going to do nothing, and you'll be stuck in the permanent underclass. You need to take risks, right? You got to be careful, right? You got to have a little trust in yourself to be careful. You don't want to just install. He's like, oh, if you install any random skill. Yeah, well, then don't install any random skill, right? Maybe you want to read the markdown file a little bit before you install it. But it's not how you want to live your life, doing the straw man, oh my God, this is the worst thing that could happen, so I can't use this.
That's right. I like that feeling of just empowerment. And also kind of part of the reason why we even started this show right now is because we want to talk about this. And this is the way that I'm thinking about security. It's like, hey, if I'm going to give this guy keys to something, I probably won't give it to the guy who has like the most access on the internet. I'm probably not just going to go scrape data and then tell it to do an action from that thing. I'm going to transport the data into a container, and then some type of other thing is going to act on that. And then maybe, do certain types of tasks, right? Maybe I just run it through a RAG index, and through the RAG indexing, I'm able to get enough useful information that I need. And that doesn't even require an LLM. That's just a function call. And,
sometimes you just got to be an adult, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to be an adult and be like, hey, if I do the wrong things here, something bad can happen, so I'm not going to do the wrong things.
Right.
There's so many people going out there on social saying, hey, no one use Claudebot. Anything can happen. Let's treat each other like adults. Anything can happen for sure. But don't, put your Claudebot in a group chat with a bunch of strangers. Don't, give it access to your banking, things like that. Let's just be adults.
Justin says, thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Never heard of the worst case scenario. Never think of the worst case scenario. I mean, it's good to think about it from a QA standpoint because you always want to think about them, but also think about what's the other side of it, right? Like what can you do to like build on top of that and think about these in like I said, like isolated components. At the end of the day, that's kind of what it's doing anyways. It's launching off these different things. I also want to share this tool called exe.dev. Have you heard of that?
No.
So it's basically, you can set it up so you can, you can get, I think like up to 25 instances. They're already pre-built with Claude, Codex, I think a couple different things that are ready to go, these VMs that are already warmed up. And so if you want to do a coding task, instead of having your Claudebot do it on itself, you just tell it to kick off one of these exe.devs that you will host. And instead of you spinning up an Amazon and configuring everything so it could be ready to go, they're basically disposable. So you just set one of these up. This is my PR bot, and your little bot can talk to exe.dev. And then from there, what you would do is then just say, hey, do this PR, and it's literally just doing it in that environment, and it's running Codex or whatever you want to run, like in that type of thing. Mm-hmm. And then it comes back and tells your bot, hey, everything's ready. So there's no risk of any other things that you've been storing in your Claudebot, because MaltBot has a configuration file that has keys and environment stuff that's already locked down, and there are security commands that you can run in your MaltBot to make sure that that's still locked down with the chmod stuff, and then with other types of things that you can do. But if you have like a process that will spin out and go talk to exe.dev, this thing is ready to go. So you can dispose of it anytime, you can spin it up anytime, you can give them different names for different tasks. So you can have one that generates the code, you can have another one that does PR review. And so it's sort of a way to launch these headless, instances without you having to mutz around. But their only job, you can do whatever you want. For me, I'm just assigning them code tasks. Mm-hmm. That thing is, I think it's like $25 a month. Obviously, not sponsored or anything, but I came across my radar as an interesting thing.
They should sponsor you.
Yeah, they should. Let's go.
Paying you.
Yeah. We're just, and so, let's see what else people are saying. Alex is the next Hormozy.
You're the next Hormozy.
You're the next Hormozy. Greetings from Melbourne. Watching you now before going to see Alcatraz and Zverev, I'm going to confuse in the way how to properly set up Claudebot.
Sounds like tennis players.
Yeah. To set Claudebot up and configure it securely. So you're saying Mac Mini. I did it on EC2, and I did it on EC2 because I literally just had Claude Code walk me through the setup and teach me how to do this stuff. And wasn't that crazy because it taught me how to like set up policies, and it taught me how the stuff really worked because I, as an engineer, wanted to figure this stuff out. It's not something I had a lot of access to, but after kind of playing around with it, it actually became less scary. And actually, my friend AJ, who's here, was the one who actually kind of put me on to EC2. He's like, yeah, and he walked us through, and we did that on a live stream, just like walking around by a park or something like that. So once you start playing with the interface, it isn't as scary, and you actually find out how powerful it is. One of the things I just said, there's no outside access to it unless I tunnel in using the AWS command line. And you
Word
can also
is James from Convex is a security expert. I wonder what he thinks. You're using Claudebot?
You're using let's get you on.
You have it on the main.
Come on, pop on the hot seat. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Okay, cool. You want to grab another chair? You guys can share the mic.
I can crouch down here.
Cool.
How you doing, yo?
What's going on, man?
You want to creep me? All right.
Let's go. Yeah.
I'll stand awkwardly on the side.
Yeah. We got another chair too. Yeah.
Look at this.
Let's
nice
go.
to be here.
Come on
Thanks so
over.
much, Ray.
Cool.
Hey, it's an interesting world. I'm learning some things. I'm learning some things really fast. So people probably know what Convex is. Convex backend as a service. Think of it as the bottom of the stack, right? For a lot of vibe coding apps, Convex is the bottom of their stack. And so my job and the team's job is mostly doing the stuff that Claude can't do. You know, how to build a durable database that's end-to-end consistent, blah, 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 right? So that people can move really fast and build apps and have them just work. And what's been so interesting with Claudebot, and from my perspective, Claude Hub or Malt Hub, it's built on Convex, right? And Pete's a Convex fan, which is awesome. And it was vibe coded very fast and launched very fast and scaled to massive usage and adoption very quickly on Convex. So you have this app that I don't know if he's read the source code of. Like, I don't want to throw him under the bus with this, right? But like this is like, that the philosophy is like, let's go, build this app, put it out there, and then the team in that room over there is responsible for making sure this thing works. And so this is a really interesting problem for me. And there was a time like, even months ago, where I would have said, hey, people need to care about certain things. Like, hey, you should care about security, or you should care about consistency, et cetera. And I think as a company, as a CTO, I've kind of declared bankruptcy that I can ask people to care about things because people are just going to care about being productive, right? So my job now is how to build incentives and APIs that just make sure things just work, which was an interesting case with Claude Hub because it kind of didn't just work straight away. Yeah.
Is Claudebot the skill marketplace? Is that what it is?
It's a skill marketplace. Yeah, so it's basically it's a website where all the skills are there. You can scroll and search, whatever, right? And so this, we didn't see this coming. We just saw a project get a huge amount of usage. So we took a look. Hey, what's going on here? Now, folks might have seen Jamie, who's my co-founder, actually contributed towards Claude Hub or now Malt Hub, and made a efficiency improvement to the code base. And so that's not scalable, right? Like kind of the CEO going and fixing people's code, right? So the lesson, I think what it was doing, I might have had this wrong, but I think what it was doing is Convex is reactive, so it was live updating whenever new skills are added, et cetera. And I think it was subscribing to a query which used a date inside of it. So anytime the date changed, it reran the query. And so we're in an era now where I can't tell developers, hey, don't do that. I can't say like read the docs, don't query date and subscribe to it. What I got to do now is make sure our lint rules, either our API doesn't let you do things that aren't efficient, or interestingly, what's become very effective is just throw in like ESLint rules that say, yo, maybe you don't want to be reading date in this query. And then the agent will just read these, right? So now we're in this whole new world as of like weeks ago, where like ESLint isn't just a tool to make sure your code is correct. It's like a mechanism for feeding back to the agent and teaching it how to be a good engineer.
Wow, that's super smart. How do you think of this in terms of, like, let's just kind of turn things on its head a little bit. Claudebot was your baby now, and it's birthed to the world, and people want this, and people want Convex, people want the real time, right? Like, I started using Convex because it's like my agents started to sort of understand what this system is really fast. And I, kind of understood, okay, like things are really well isolated and separated by design. And so like good, simple design is kind of like simple, right?
Yeah.
And it could be adopted. How should people then think about like how they're structuring this type of thing in this system? Because they want to achieve these things. They want this super intelligence to work for them. And like, how should people start approaching, or what questions should they start asking? I mean, I think people just don't know what questions to ask.
Yeah. So there's there's an open question that I have a take on, right? But not everyone agrees with me. And that take is that some people will argue that APIs and platforms just don't matter anymore. The agent will write the whole thing. And I find this a pretty silly argument. Firstly, it's not possible. It's just, you cannot currently go and ask Claude to build you Postgres. It just can't do it currently. Maybe eventually, but currently it can't, right? The second thing is, why would you? There's not a strong economic incentive to ask, when you said you're running Clawdbot in EC2, right? You didn't ask Claude to build AWS for you first, right? You just use AWS, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just one, pragmatic in the short term, but I think probably necessary in the foreseeable future, that there is this dichotomy in the tech industry, this bifurcation, right? There's fast-moving, feature-rich, really exciting heuristic applications, right? That are almost entirely correct, but not entirely correct, right? Maybe you just don't care. Maybe close enough is good enough, right? On top of platforms that are very correct and heavily tested and really strong, right? The way I think about it is this is the power of abstractions. People get sick of me saying the word abstraction all the time, right? But the LLMs are a machine for producing complexity, right? And anyone who's been a software engineer for a long time would know that complexity multiplies over time, and complexity does limit the ability to scale and move fast. And there's a very big difference between building a demo and building a company that lasts for decades and makes billions of dollars, right? And the way to do that is try to make your systems as simple as possible. Wow. And so I would argue that to be able to do that, to use the highest level building blocks you can possibly use to prevent you having to reinvent the wheel. Yes, you could go and rewrite React, but why would you? Just use React, right? It's there. And so I think, this is the mindset is, I think that there's this very symbiotic relationship between the platforms with very strong guarantees and responsibility. If we lose data, that's my fault, right? If Claudebot does something strange, I don't know whose fault that is, right? It's maybe it's your fault,
Yeah.
And so we own responsibility for a certain, that's why I say Convex is the bottom of the stack. We own responsibility for a certain set of primitives always working for you. Yeah. And then I think that's a very empowering thing. And then you can go nuts, then go build a whole bunch of stuff on top of it and play fast and loose, because it's very likely your data is going to be safe. It's very likely it's going to scale. It's very likely you're not going to do strange things with manual polling and grinding your server into dust.
That's interesting. I like these different takes because I feel like there is a big discussion right now, especially in engineering. And I think, to me, I do see a similar thing where people who write the frameworks, who do a really good job, who test them, who make them easy, not only for themselves as engineers, but for other agents. It's part of the reason why ShadCN took off. Part of the reason, TypeScript and all these different languages, types can be verified. And so I think that's an interesting thinking about how these, like you say, symbiotic relationships between, what the agents are going to be doing / choosing, plus you as a human, and how maybe people can rethink about their architectures and stuff like that. So I think, what are your thoughts then on agents, I guess, because Convex has an agents thing going on, and you guys are approaching it this way, and it seems like people are demanding something that they can just type in plain English to do some tasks, right? They're not necessarily thinking about it from a code perspective. And I do see this world of what people are calling vibecoders, and even engineers or product managers who say, I can't write the code, but I can explain in English to build stuff. How are you guys thinking about that? Because you have some products that do something similar too, right?
Yeah. So we have an agent framework people use to build their own agents. You don't have to use that to use Convex, right? I think what's pretty clear for everyone is that the agent you're using today is very likely not going to be the agent you're using in 6 months. Maybe it will be, right? But but the industry is evolving so fast, right? And so then you ask yourself, okay, what's durable? What's going to be around? So from two perspectives, your perspective, you build an application, right? What's going to exist? What's going to be stable in 6 months? And I'm running Convex. So on our side, our incentive right now is to make it sure we have a team working on this, making sure it's extremely easy to bootstrap Convex applications from any agent, because it's very ergonomic and the docs are great, and there are quite a lot of frictions right now that I want to improve on. So sure, we're partnering with certain agents and we have our own, but at the end of the day, if I think of an LLM as a little person, right? I need to make Convex so easy that it, someone came and gave me a demo this week of their coding agent, and obviously they want me to like it, so they added Convex support to it, but they did it that morning, right? And they just went and got our docs and told Claude to add Convex support to their agent, and it worked, right? So from my perspective, what we really need to do is I'm kind of pretty much a subscriber to what's good for people is good for agents most of the time, right? If your docs are simple and to the point, if your APIs are clean and basic and it's not possible to do the wrong thing, that's good for people. Guess what? It's good for agents too, right? I haven't seen evidence that agents' needs are extraordinarily different than humans' needs, except for the parallelism. So agents do need to have a lot of parallel, dev instances, et cetera, and Convex needs to improve on that.
Have you got one of these little MaltBot things set up? Or playing around with it on Anywhere?
No, I don't yet, but I do own a Mac Mini. So we have one sitting over there. I've been too busy trying to run MaltHub. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
It's been 2 years.
It's been 2 years in AI.
It's a long time. I'll say the other thing about if you're building an application right now, on an agent, and everyone's so excited that they're building demos and new things every day, but some folks are going to want to build something that lasts for years, right? Yeah. And so it's highly likely that you're not going to be in the same development environment next year. So what's going to be around next year? Well, your data's going to be around next year, right? The data about your users, and your product spec is going to be around next year, how your app works. And the architecture that you start with now is probably your system's going to smell like that for years to come, however you start. So I would say these are the things that matter. I wouldn't over tailor an application to a certain agent framework or a certain LLM or anything like that, because ultimately that's gonna pass.
Wow.
Someone else is gonna come along with a better agent, tomorrow.
Wow.
But think about where you're storing your data. Think about what APIs you're using. Think about your product spec, take notes, right? And I think, evolving a prompt over time that's, codifies how this app should work, so you have some, especially if you're not handwriting your system, you really do need to have some kind of record of what your system is meant to do, and is it meeting the needs of your spec?
Wow.
Yeah.
So are there any things that you've studied that you like a lot, architecture-wise, that you've come across that maybe people can go start looking up that they may not know about? Because I think you guys all studied databases and stuff.
That's a big question. That's a big question.
So I feel like there's this knowledge that you all have that, maybe we're not privy to because we're now using LLMs to get started. But there are some good, it's interesting because Mark Andreessen was on a podcast with Lenny, and he said his barbell is literally just X, which is the feed. And then it's these books that are 50 years old plus, because there's just knowledge that still carries forward today. And I feel like we're sort of like that in programming right now. It's the buzz that's going on with agents and LLMs, and there's these historical programmers who've just have made these simple systems or solved crazy problems, and because they had so many more challenges and more time to think.
Yeah.
What do you feel like on that?
So I like your question, because I used to be an academic. I don't know if you knew that, but I used to be a researcher at MIT, and I worked in distributed systems, and my advisor was this woman named Barbara Liskov, and she's famous for the Liskov substitution principle and the L in solid, and her, I mean, she invented a lot of things, but one of the things she invented, which seems like it doesn't need to be invented, but the idea of abstraction in software engineering, the idea of subtyping, like taking a complex function and wrapping it up in a simple interface that represents what that function does, right?
Wow.
And it turns out the programming language folks 50 years ago were thinking about how to manage complexity. You know, they were thinking really hard about how do you have building blocks, and then so they came up with stuff like information hiding and transactions and exceptions and type safety and all these things, right? And a lot of people, I mentioned this the other day, but a lot of people wouldn't realize that in the late 60s, early 70s, you should probably Google this if you don't know about this. There was something called the software crisis. This was, I think, between like 68 and 72. So half a century ago, there were folks like Edgar Dijkstra who were like these genius fathers of modern software engineering. And they were like, oh my God, productivity is going to grind to a halt. We can't code anymore. This is in the late 60s. Like, we just can't code because everything's so complicated. Oh my God, like coding was so easy, and then the systems got big, and now we can't manage the code, and it's just, we're done, you know?
Whoa.
And we had, and you know, he's an optimistic, innovative person, so we've got to think of ways to solve this problem. So it was called the software crisis, and the best minds in software engineering 50 years ago thought that we'd kind of capped out in our productivity. Right?
Wow.
I think we're going through a software crisis again now, because there's plenty of folks who are building applications, they're vibe coding them, and then they get to a certain point, they're like, oh my God, what does my application do? I have no idea.
Yeah.
You know, and so what happened? How did we solve the software crisis? We solved it via simplicity. And it sounds so silly, but information hiding, using functions, not using global variables, using interfaces, like all the things that went into development of modern programming languages kind of low-key solved the software crisis, at least allowed us to move 50 years forwards into the future and make so many amazing things. I think we will run into those problems again. Being fortunate enough to work on very, very large systems, you know, like billion-dollar distributed storage systems and stuff. From the outside, very complex technical challenges. The only way we were able to manage this was by making things just as simple as possible. And I don't think LLMs obviate the need for caring about simplicity. Because at the end of the day, if you've built something that's so large and so maintainable, you don't quite know what it does. If it gets away from you, if it gets to the point where Claude maybe is like, what's this doing over here, right? It's a bad place to be, right? So I think the number one piece of wisdom I can give to any young software engineer is just do not underestimate the value of simplicity, right? And obviously, I'm going to shill Convex and say, well, Convex is the most simple API platform, blah, blah, blah. You don't have to use Convex, right? But I will say, like, please don't. There's this fallacy that every young software engineer gets into because they get so excited. They're like, I'm going to build my own consensus protocol, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do the coolest thing. And why would I need to have type safety? I can get more efficiency by using unsafe in Rust, or like memory safety. So everyone goes through this because I think that makes you cool and hardcore, right? It makes you dumb,
hey,
right?
It gets the views on the tweets, right?
Yeah, it gets the views on the tweets, right? The best compliment I ever heard, there was a guy I used to work with, Mike Solomon, who was, one of the first couple of engineers at YouTube and PayPal and everywhere. He's very, very experienced engineer. Love Mike. And he was a senior principal engineer at Dropbox. And someone described his codes. I overheard someone saying, Mike's code looks like a 2-year-old wrote it, right? And I think it was meant to be an insult. And I was like, that is a massive compliment. Do you not understand that if this guy managed to build important systems in ways that look really simple and unimpressive, he's really freaking good at software engineering.
Amazing.
Right? And so I think that's, whether you're writing the code yourself or not, I don't care, right? But the more you can do to keep the internals of your programs as simple as possible, the more it's going to scale, the more it's going to be extensible in the future, and the lower the likelihood you're going to end up with a mess on your hands in the future.
That's amazing. I love this advice, and I'm so glad that, you guys can just hop on like this. And this is the vibe check, ladies and gentlemen. If you're not tuned in, AI vibe check. We do this every Thursday. Like and subscribe. Yeah. This is what we do here. And this is what's the audience. So we have everyone here live here at Convex. And so we have a lot of different folks. And I want to take some more questions from the audience, some questions also from the live stream, because I know a lot of people have some different questions about, you know, things that we're doing, systems that you're building with Clawdbot as well, aka MaltBot. You know, if you're using Convex as well to build apps, if you're not using Convex as well, like what does that mean? I mean, the ranges of talent here is amazing, and there's a lot of people with different, you know, engineering expertise, product expertise that can also kind of answer some things. So if you're in the area, wherever I'm at, I'm doing one of these, definitely try to show up live because there's just lots of value. When we turn off the live stream, we're going to continue the conversation. So you can feel free to find James anywhere, right? Yes.
Yeah, you can just search for James Convex or something. James, you'll find me.
Yeah, you'll find him. Yeah, if you have questions about distributed systems, obviously how to get that stuff set up, super useful, man. Yeah.
Thanks so
cool,
much, Ray.
for sure. Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you for popping on. Yeah, and so awesome. Yeah. Cool. Excellent.
That was cool.
Yeah, that was amazing. I learned a lot.
About to founders of cool ass tools. That's nice.
And it's not that hard. Like, it's not, I think sometimes that's what happens. Like when you're using these LLMs, you get super confident, obviously, and you want to do everything. And like, it's interesting to hear a lot also about the history of this and like those conversations people are having about security and stuff. It's like we're at the very beginnings of this and we can already see the problems, but it doesn't mean that you have to give up. It's you just have to maybe start to cook.
You just got to be cooking right now. This is the best time to cook ever.
Yeah. So let's see. MaltBot did my laundry today. You can't be serious, bro. No way.
Something tells me he's not serious.
No,
I
think it ordered, like, I've seen people order food. Like, it's like, yeah, you have 3 super excited AI bros in the room. Of course.
Mickey in the house.
Yeah, Mickey, what's
Where's
going
he
on,
at?
man?
I thought he works at this place. He's not in the office?
He's frozen, bro. Like, over in, there's a polar vortex.
Yeah, put this guy in a pip. Where's he at?
A pip.
You kidding me?
Skincare routine, bro. No, I'm good. The James guy.
What's James's skincare routine?
There's none.
None.
Just wake up. Yeah. It's a San Francisco beach life, you know? Yeah.
Staying inside all the time. That'll do it for you.
Would you see the benefits of using Convex over Supabase and how to migrate from Supabase to Convex?
Ask Claude.
I like how Convex usage is based instead of per project. No, I was just kidding, right? About the thing. Convex is fantastic. No regrets moving away from Supabase, saving tons of money. Yeah. I think I also want to get to some other interesting use cases that people are talking about. Is that I think we have someone else here, Kaylin, right? Yes, who has you built a UI, I think, on top of Claudebot. No. Yeah, we just love to hear. If maybe
now you did.
Now you did, yeah. I'm inventing apps. So yeah, if you want to just come on over, just take the hot seat as well. Come hang out and
tell us about this UI.
Yeah, tell us.
Claudebot.
Yeah. Oh, we got. Yo, what's going on? Okay, cool. Yeah.
Let's get over.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. This is cool. We have like the full show.
Oh, wow.
Awesome. Come hang out. Yeah. What's going on? So let's get this microphone here. Yeah. Now yeah. Cool. Let's see if I can do this here. I think this works this way. Oh, perfect. Awesome. Cool. Yay.
Cool.
Yeah, I think we can pick you up, hopefully. Yes. Okay, cool. Yeah. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kaylin. I didn't know it was this serious, so I was
This
like,
is a serious podcast.
Yeah, it's a little serious. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm building Momo right now, and it's not on top of Clawdbot or MaltBot, but I sort of market it that way because I'm trying to build a company memory for teams so that teams can keep track of what other people worked on.
Wow.
So it integrates to the workspace apps that you use every day, like Gmail, Notion, Slack, those kind of stuff. And then it keeps track of the inputs and the decisions that you've made for each of the apps. And then it builds a company memory on top of that. So the basic concept is that you don't have to like check in with the other person, talk about their updates, ask for updates and stuff. You can just check the company memory and then chat with it, and then also do like API tool calls to do a lot of actions within the website.
That's fantastic. So a lot of people have concerns about security, and so you chose to do like this method. Tell us a little bit more about this stack and kind of how that is looking, because that could be interesting, right?
Right.
Yeah.
In terms of security, well, I guess the first thing to say is that we're SOC 2 certified. And then the other thing was that because it's like all of your data that is happening within Gmail and within like Slack, so all those are very like sensitive company information. So one thing that I've set up right now is to build like a client-side zero-knowledge encryption. So when we first set up Momo, you have to generate a encryption key that is stored just on your browser, on your local browser, and then it encrypts all those data with your client encryption key.
Whoa.
So every data that is stored on our servers are all ciphertext, and then they're all encrypted. So any of the team on Momo can't see the data or the actual context of it.
That's hot.
And the content of it, yeah.
How did you come up with this idea?
Yeah.
So I've been working on this for the past year. So I started off building personalized assistants like Claudebot. I was just super into trying to build a executive assistant for founders. So I actually worked as an executive assistant for a couple of founders during last summer. And I was like trying to figure out like what kind of problems that they have. And I realized that one of the main problems that they have is just multiple context switching. They need to like wear so many hats. They need to like message investors, also keep track of what the team is doing, also go into team meetings, et cetera, et cetera. So I tried to solve that problem with a unified inbox. So the product that I launched last September was a unified inbox that integrated all of those like message platforms. And then I launched it. I had paying users. One of the things that I realized really fast was that the churn rate was also really high because I think I was probably targeting the wrong audience. Founders, well, this is not a generalization, but founders, like, it's not their top priority to message someone or having to reply to someone. For founders, their top priority is to know what the progress updates are, what the sales looks like, what the revenue looks like. So I decided to pivot to like this company memory because it's a larger problem that I can solve, and founders are more interested in like what's going on overall in the company. So that's sort of how I started building Momo. And I just pivoted in December, and then I launched it last week. So
How'd you build it?
how did I build it?
Yeah.
With Claude.
Claude Code?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Were you a developer before?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you took your development skills.
It's the ciphers, bro. Like she knows how to.
Right.
Yeah.
But for us, I think it's really important that we're building like the memory layer itself for Momo. So it's also really about like the memory layer itself. Like there's not a lot of like, I think it's like really just like frontier technology right now. So we have to like read like all the papers, research about it, think about how we're actually going to build the logic of how the memory gets like self-evolving within Momo. So that's one thing that I'm also researching into right now.
Interesting.
Your video went viral on X a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
The first line was Claudebot
Teams.
for Teams. Did Claudebot drop and you're like, yes, this is it. This is Claudebot for Teams. Because you've been working on this for a year. Claudebot came out like a week ago. Were you this is the marketing, this is the line, Claudebot for Teams.
Yeah.
Very nice. Very nicely done. I like that.
Like good thread hijack and stuff.
Yes.
And so if those who haven't tried it and are interested, I would definitely go ahead and check it out. I think if you have any questions for her, I think it's interesting because you're thinking about this also from a security architecture.
Right.
And so you said, here's the data and encrypted. What about prompt injection? Because a lot of people are really kind of afraid of that.
Yeah, I have a good story about this because
Yes.
I launched Momo like last Thursday, and then within like 5 hours of launch, there were like so many, like over like 30 attempts of like prompt injection for Momo. And they were actually kind enough to reach out to me, and they tried to tell me that they tried the prompt injection techniques and they're failing. Like Momo was
Catching them.
Yeah, Momo was catching them because I knew that this would happen, and I already like put up some guardrails before launching the product. The thing is like for like our system prompts, I don't really mind going like open source. Like I don't really mind if they really want to hack into that and they want to get the system. For us, it's just really about how the memory is being like self-evolved, and that is not part of the system prompt anyway, so it's fine. But yeah, I had to like work on trying to prevent those hacks.
What does that look like? Is it system prompt? Is it like AI SDK as well? And like, or what are you using underneath the hood framework wise too? That kind of. protect against these things?
For Graph, I'm using Neo4j right now for the Graph database. And then everything else is just Next.js. And then for the database storage, I'm using Supabase, but trying to be really careful of the security there because there can be a lot of leaks in Supabase as well. Yeah.
So like everyone, I imagine most people in this room are setting up Claudebot, probably why they go to live podcasts of tech stuff. Anyway, I think one of the biggest risks of Claudebot though is like I want it to look at my email and stuff, and I want to like have a group chat where like anyone could chat with it.
Right.
But there's just too much risk of prompt injection. I'm not an expert when it comes to prompt injection, so I don't even want to try to tackle that myself. So it sounds like you did that with Momo. Like, what if someone watching is trying to harden their Claudebot so they can have it look at their email and not get prompt injected? What should they do? How do you harden your AI so people can't mess with it?
Honestly, like, I don't think I'm the best person to ask about this because I also talked with Claude how to put up the guardrails. So
Usually the answer for
talk to someone with high IQ. Okay, Claude.
So I'm also like keeping track of any of the prompt injection techniques that people are trying to do. So I scrape like all of those like prompt injection techniques, and then I not necessarily train it, but I make sure that Momo's LLM like goes through it first and then filters it to see if this is like a prompt injection technique, and then just immediately blocks it from even like processing, so that it knows it's just trying to do prompt injection. Yeah.
How big's your team?
It's actually just me.
That's sick.
Me and Claude.
Me and Claude, let's go. Me and Claude. Best friends, BFFs.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, let's see if we can take a look at some questions also from the audience, because a lot of people are kind of saying this. Plenty incoming. Let's see. Use Mac Mini to run the text classifier before sending the context to an agent. I think that's a
Mac Mini to run text classifier before sending context to an agent. So what, the text classifier can determine if it's a prompt injection?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and typically the smarter the model, the better. And I guess it doesn't have to necessarily be a Mac Mini. It could be some service that sits externally where there's no access to any other keys, or it doesn't have access to anything else. It's just probably like a thumbs up or thumbs down or something, right? That's probably can be an interesting idea or a concept. It's like, hey, send this off to a function somewhere, and it's going to say like if this is safe to run, or I don't know, whatever the type of criteria you set. And maybe, I don't know, like what do you think about something
I think
like that?
that's exactly what I'm doing right now as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm not an engineer. I'm a vibe engineer, I guess you could say.
You're a podcaster.
I'm a podcaster, yeah. Don't listen to any advice from people who are podcasting on there. By the way, disclaimer, like check, that's kind of...
People spend any amount of time a day talking into a microphone, do not listen to them.
Yeah, do not listen to us because we're just yappers professionally, I guess. Not necessarily paid, but eventually. Yeah, that's kind of where this is going. Okay, so anyways, always max RAM. I think people were talking about different configuration. OpenAI has a free moderation API. Has anyone used that?
Oh, not yet.
Okay.
Same.
Yeah, Luis is dropping the alpha on the chat right now.
Moderation API, okay.
API is to check for that?
He says GPT OSS safeguard 20B. So you can just run that locally on the Mac. I think that's what he's saying.
Damn.
My boy cooks. Okay, I think I'm gonna start doing that. Yeah, today I learned.
Your computer.
Okay, cool. So for those who are using the Mac or MaltBot, well, for what are some important cores or memory, trying to buy the correct one. Also, M4 versus M1 might make much difference. I think for running that thing,
just do anything.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, I think running it on hardware is the best way to do it. So I like that you're talking about Mac Mini or whatever. But I think the best way to do it is just like set it up, get it going. I think 99.9% of use cases that people use for it, they're not going to know about them going into it. You really don't. I don't think you know the power of it until you start using it. And it learns about what you do and your goals, and then it just starts coming up with things to do. So I'd say do whatever the lowest barrier of entry is. If you got an old dusty laptop in your closet, put it on that, see what it's like. And then like for me, I started doing it on the Mac Mini, and I'm like, man, it'd be sick if I had like a local vision model where when I finish my videos, it goes through this process where it creates the thumbnail and does this, and I'm like, okay, I need a bigger computer for this. So you can then go, if like you figure out, okay, your Claude needs bigger, badder tools to use, then you can go buy the bigger, badder machine.
Yeah, because I think someone was saying, should you max out on the RAM on a Mac Mini? I think
It
as
doesn't
much as
need any
possible?
RAM.
Yeah.
Claude doesn't
so
need
run
RAM. The
Clawdbot, correct.
tools it uses
Yeah.
is going to need RAM. So it depends if your Claude and the workflows you're thinking of, those tools need more RAM.
Right. So if you're going to run those bigger parameter models, that may be something you can consider.
The
Yeah.
thing can run on like a $50 Raspberry Pi. It doesn't need that much RAM.
Yeah, the actual unit itself that actually does the instructions and go fetches and uses the API and so forth is the one. I think this person was commenting about you, Claude, being your your buddy there. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I think we were talking about the GraphRAG are the future for memory of agents. Yeah. So how are you thinking in terms of like memory here? What are some of the recent techniques that you've learned that maybe you've jumped through as a hurdle? Because like, what made you go through like Neo4j and for those who are not familiar with Neo4j, like what, is graph and why, and like maybe a little bit of exploration in the space for memory. Yeah.
How to put this easily? So I think the best comparison for like GraphRAG is just vector databases RAG versus the GraphRAG. There's like, I think right now, what I'm exploring right now is vector RAGs are completely fine if you just want to make like simple requests or query requests and you want to get fast answers. So for example, what were the decisions that I made last week? That's like pretty simple. You can just go through the database and then retrieve those decisions and then make the answer. But I think GraphRAG becomes more important when you're trying to understand the relationships behind the decisions. So for example, I worked on this something and then Alex worked on something else. And you're trying to understand the relationship between how those decisions are connected. And it's just not one decision. Those two decisions might be connected to all other decisions that are spread out within the company. And then in that case, you need to do like multi-hop to understand like the decisions. And that becomes sort of difficult when you're just trying to use the vector databases, because you might just be doing similarity searches and finding the top 5 results for that. And then that might not work well when you're trying to understand the relationships behind those. So right now I'm trying to explore like the good sweet spot between like what would be the best case to just use vector database when you just want like simple answers, and what would be the right case to use like GraphRAG when you want more complex like understanding relationships behind the decisions.
Okay, because there is a technique that Alex was saying where he just dumps literally everything, like about his life, his business, everything that's going on. And we're only day 5 of this whole thing. And imagine day 300 or something. So we have all of this like stuff written to disk. And people are going to want a way to be saying, I wanted to know something that I did 6 months ago, but then, it's bringing up some of the recent things that aren't really relevant.
Yeah.
And so you're thinking there could be some other combinations and maybe for people to start exploring or thinking about things, right?
Yeah, and that as well. And then I think some other things that are important is like the temporal layer, so right now what Momo is doing is it extracts decisions based on the date so that it knows like when you've made that decision. Oh. And I think that's also important when you're trying to understand the time relationships behind the decisions. Wow. So that's one thing. And then yeah, for us, like when we're extracting, when I say us, it's just me and Momo. So
and Claude, yeah. Me, my dog,
it's just me, Momo, and Claude. But yeah, when I'm extracting the decisions and the memories for example, when you connect to Gmail, it starts automatically extracting those decisions and the memories based on those applications. And how it does that is that it goes through only the inputs that you've made. So for email, it's like only the emails that you've sent, because those are the ones that you've actually made decisions in. And then for those emails, it goes through that email to extract the people, entities, and decisions that you've made for each email. And then it starts doing that for all of the emails and all of the Slack messages that you've connected. So it can create like a relationship graph between the people, the common entities, and the common decisions that you've made. And then that's how like the memory itself is made. Yeah.
I see. So it's literally, I like these types of design questions because they help inform me and think about these problems in the future. And I mean, that is just insane alpha. And it's probably simple to you, but for a lot of people who've never really explored this topic and you've been spending lots of time here, I think it's definitely appreciated. And I think people are excited in the chat about this because they're like going off on these things. So yeah, like it's going to be, I think Luis is saying my 100K email is going to cost money on VectorRAG. I don't know. Is it cost quite a bit to do these types of operations? What is your experience?
It depends on what embedding model you're using and like what model you're using. But it's not that expensive. If it's like 100K emails, of course, it's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
In terms of like the graph database, there's like the mostly main used one just is Neo4j, and then there's also FlockerDB. So I've been exploring those two at the current moment.
Okay. Yeah. So for people who are curious, it's use momo.com is your app, right?
Yeah.
They can go find it there. Gets onboarded. I think it's right now. You're doing like an onboarding manually.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
You can actually just like try it out right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. People can go
It's just,
try it out.
Launched. Yeah.
This is awesome. Yeah.
Yes.
I think there's some other folks. Anyone who wants to share here? Are there any workflows that they're using for Clawdbot or anything? Or you want to share your stuff? Cool. Come on down. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. Sweet. Yes.
You come in the hot seat.
Yeah. So, yeah, introduce yourself.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Maddie, and I wanted to show off today. I'm not sure how well you guys are going to be able to see it.
I'm going to have this camera here.
Okay, perfect. So I set up my MaltBot as a little Tamagotchi. So it's on this, it's called an XT ink, I think is how you pronounce it. But it's basically just a little e-reader. And I used Cloud Code to create some custom firmware for it. And then it runs a skill. So let me get out my explanation of how exactly it works. So basically it goes, I send a message on Telegram. MaltBot responds on Telegram. MaltBot runs a skill, which uses a script to write a message, and then a polling script in the background to text the new message. Polling script publishes to MQTT, which is just a messaging protocol. And then this receives the message and renders it to the display. Yeah, take a look. So I'll send a message over on Telegram. So every time MaltBot responds to me on Telegram, it pops up here.
Can you make him like dance? Like what's the
So there,
Can he dance? Yeah.
There are different states. So
Let's go.
let's see. Let's see if I can change him to the excited state.
Ask your Claudebot to vibe code a dancing state for it right now.
Ask it to vibe code a dancing state? That'd be
Oh my
crazy.
God, that'd be incredible. I'll come back and I'll show you that.
This
But yeah.
thing is, so where did you get this e-reader from, by the way?
Yeah, so this is from, I believe it's a Chinese company, but it's called an XT ink, XTEINK.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
wow.
so that's his little.
Express?
So you can get it on AliExpress,
Whoa.
but yeah, I actually got it. I really wanted one. I convinced my sister to buy one a few weeks ago, and then really wanted one a few days ago, and then I bought this off of OfferUp in San Jose. Because I was like, this will be perfect. This will be perfect for it.
Whoa.
But yeah, so it kind of does that, and then it really just sends whatever response over here.
Let's see. How do we see more messages?
Yes. Okay.
Conversation.
Yeah. Okay, let's see.
What's the name again? I guess we'll have to put in the names in the chat. So it's about $14 on AliExpress, I think,
Yeah,
Luis.
yeah,
If you
I
drop
think-
$14.
Oh yeah, so like through
This
the
is $14?
so through the official site, it's more, but like there are some really, really, really cheap options on like AliExpress. Yeah.
For $14?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'll sell it to you for 100 if you want to buy it.
Yeah. Right.
Let's
My
go.
mind can't compute that.
Why back?
$14.
I know, it's crazy. Okay, let's see.
Yeah, let's see.
So the different states that it has, we can do. I'll tell you about all the different ones. So it has an idle state that's like the default. Has an alert one, which is new message received from me. Thinking is when it's processing thinking. Talking is when it's responding. Excited is when a task is completed successfully. Sleeping means idle for 5+ minutes. Working means using a tool, and then there's an error one when there's an error at some point in the process.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's fun. It's fun. Okay, it has no practical use case, but it's fun.
I love this.
It doesn't. Who cares? Honestly, right? I'm having a good
You're allowed
time.
to do things. So you can go out and buy a $900 Mac Mini for no reason when you can host on
Exactly.
Amazon because it's fun.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun. I'm having a good time. Yeah. Okay. Let's see.
Yeah, XTE X4 ebook reader ink screen.
Yeah.
And it hooks up to your, like it goes on your phone, right?
No.
microphone.
So it.
No, it gives like magnets on your phone. No?
Oh, it does. Yeah. I haven't hooked up that
Can we see
part.
what it looks like?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't hooked up that part, but honestly, it'll
Oh,
just
it's
go
like a
like.
connection.
Yeah, it gives you like a separate little little ring thing, like a sticker. But
Yeah.
it'll just go like this, and then you can.
And then you can just snap it to your phone.
Secure?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, what if you wear like tight pants? Is it gonna like come off as you're putting it in your?
Oh, okay. So, I mean, I think so. Like, it's just it's like a sticker magnet.
Okay.
And then you put another sticker magnet on here, and then it just.
Very
clicks.
nice.
Yeah, using MagSafe stuff. So, but it's cool. Yeah. So really, again, no practical use case, but I had a lot of fun figuring it out, and I'm glad it works.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to see, thank you, Luis, so much for being a resource there and
Yeah,
kind of
thank
dropping
you.
the link and stuff like that.
Yeah, awesome.
I mean, this is, so you just basically just yapped it up through Claude Code, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. So actually, I spent a long time trying to get it worked out with Claude Code, trying a bunch of different stuff, like a Tailscale funnel and things like that, and trying to get it all, tried a bunch of different configurations, and then I would run into a wall with each one. And then yesterday, after a few days of this, I finally was like, oh, I never asked my MaltBot directly, like, what should I be doing? I was just using Claude Code.
Oh.
And then I did, and it was like, oh, yeah, I can do that with a skill.
Well,
And I was like,
no way.
I know. I was like, come on.
Wow. This
Which
is crazy.
great, but at the same time, I was like,
Bruh.
I just spent, yeah.
Hundreds of tokens.
Yeah.
Hundreds of
Yeah. But yeah, it's just a cool little thing.
You know, the thing is, I think more people should do fun things like that because
Yes.
I had like an extra iPad and I put on like this mount next to my monitor and it built its own like face, my Clawdbot, right? And now it just sits on there on the monitor whenever it's like saying or something that it's like an owl face that moves and has no practical purpose. But you know what? It makes me want to engage with it more.
I
It makes
love
me
that.
want to tinker with it more. Play. It's like, I think you should just make these things fun.
Yes, right?
Make these things fun because then you use it more, you tinker more, you learn more.
Exactly. Like the learning process is
Have
such
fun.
a huge part, and it gamifies learning, and you get to have something real and tangible come out of it.
Don't let these nerds on Twitter gatekeep this because, oh, it's not secure, you can't have fun, don't buy a Mac Mini. No, give it a face, buy a $14 e-reader,
Yes,
make it dance when you talk to it,
Right.
have some fun.
Let's go.
Gotta add this
Who cares?
into it. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's been great. I mean, I love building fun things, and I love just tinkering around with stuff. And
Yeah.
I love being like, oh, I had no clue that I could do this.
It's the best time to tinker.
Yes.
It's the best time ever to tinker, yeah.
And then I realized that, like, oh, this is something that can be built. Like, it's just crazy.
Yeah.
And it's so cool. I'm having a really good time.
That's awesome, man. Wow. So we've been vibing for a couple of hours and stuff, and it's been such a wild stream. And I also got my boy Wayne in the building. What's going on? Yeah.
Shout out Wayne.
Yay, what's
Wayne's
going
keeping this whole thing going.
Yeah. So yeah, Wayne's holding it down in the Convex thing. We're actually here live. This is what I call the vibe checks, and this is something we're trying to do every Thursday. We show up and basically kind of vibe together. And the whole point of this is like this whole space is moving incredibly fast, and never at a time before that things move so fast. It's kind of hard to tell like what's real, what's not. And so I just want to have a space where I can meet up with all y'all in person, but also share as well on the live stream. And so we've had the last couple in San Francisco. We got another one coming out next week somewhere, probably in the San Francisco Bay Area somewhere. So stay tuned on that. But this is going to be worldwide. We're going to be in Hawaii. We're going to be in Texas. We're going to be in Toronto. We're going to be, wherever you are in the world, New York, for sure, we're going to pull up. And this is what we do. We want to connect with other builders. We want to kind of get down with y'all. And, we're going to have some food and have some good time. And, when the live stream's over, we're just going to hang out with each other and start sharing some more creations and stuff like that. So I appreciate you guys really kind of hopping on my stream, kind of being a part of this whole movement here. It's just really cool that we're able to kind of show up together and do stuff here. So it's really, really cool. Yeah, there's a lot of questions I think people are kind of saying. Let's see. Thanks. I'll be there for sure. You better be in Texas. By the way, Cloudflare just released Molt Worker, $5 per month to host MaltBot too. Interesting. Alex is like, nah, fam, get the Mac Mini. Let's go.
Buy GPUs.
Buy GPUs. Yeah. If you enjoy it, I'm more interested. I'm having a lot of fun these days. Okay, cool. Will there be caviar? Okay, Augment OS is actually hosting caviar for us. Sponsoring the caviar. Thank you, buddy. I really appreciate you going to bring your caviar. This is going to be great. I think cool. Let's see if anyone else have any questions or anything like that. So yeah, I think it'll be a good time. We're going to break out, enjoy some of the food. Thank you guys for showing up. This is really fire episode.
Great to be here.
Cool.
Shout out the audience.
Yeah, shout out to the audience. Shout out to everyone. Cool. Peace out, y'all.